I know a lot of you have been waiting, and I've been waiting myself for an update on this Blaze versus Sydney Watson lawsuit that Sydney Watson filed. I obviously, and a lot of other people, including the law tubers out there like Nick Rekieta, Legal Mindset, and a lot of the other ones who I've watched, and a lot of others I've watched as well, also think that this Sydney Watson lawsuit isn't going to be favorable for Sydney Watson. I don't think Sydney Watson will end up winning this lawsuit versus the Blaze, but it also is very contradictory for Sydney Watson and the brand that she has built up, very much against the things that she is claiming in this lawsuit that she is a victim of. She's made videos in the past that I've shown on stream. I'm not going to show it in this one, but I've also made videos on videos that she's made in the past, pretty much making fun of women who file lawsuits just like this one. And to see Sydney Watson file this, man, she's teaming up with the quartering. She's doing a lot of things that I personally wouldn't do and that I personally am not a fan of. And now the Blaze has responded officially to the Sydney Watson lawsuit, and it's looking even worse for Sydney Watson. Now, let's check this out. A former Blaze media employee, by the way, this article is from Current Revolt. It says the Blaze responds to lawsuit from Sydney Watson, and it's a pretty long one. It's a pretty long response from the Blaze, so obviously we can't go through the entire thing because you would get extremely bored if I did do that, but we will go through the highlights in this video, and they also have some screenshots of text messages and emails and things like that. Like I said, man, not looking too great for Sydney Watson. Miss Watson has suffered injuries and the derailment of her multi-million-dollar career in conservative commentary as a result of her former employee, defendant the Blaze, creating and tolerating a hostile work environment and allowing sexual harassment, retaliation, and discriminating against her on the basis of her sex and religion. The Blaze's conduct was continuing, pervasive, and appalling, particularly in the light of the Blaze's representation to its audience of largely conservative Americans that it stood for solid traditional values. The Blaze, founded and run by, and that's where it cuts off right there. That was Sydney Watson's original lawsuit that she filed. That was, the main premise of the entire lawsuit. Obviously, it was a pretty long one, so you should go check that out. I've definitely done videos on that in the past. But here is the Blaze's response. The reason the Blaze asked for arbitration is they claim that Watson was an independent contractor and had entered into an arbitration agreement with the Blaze. And retaliation in violation of the TCHRA, not only do plaintiff's own statements and emails and text messages reveal that her claims are untrue, plaintiff was not employed by Blaze and instead worked for Blaze in an independent contracting capacity and entered into a valid and binding arbitration agreement with Blaze that required all disputes arising out of TSA, which created and defined her working relationship with the Blaze, to be resolved through mutually binding arbitration. The court should therefore dismiss this action and compel arbitration, or alternatively stay this action pending resolution of the arbitration. If you want to breakdown of all the legal terms and everything like that, you should go check out Rekieta Law or Legal Mindset. I'm sure that they'll both be doing great videos on this one. I believe Rekieta Law has already done a video or live stream on this response here. I'm not sure if Legal Mindset has done his yet, but I'm sure he will really soon. Watson also complains about her growing discomfort, specifically citing when suspected closeted homosexual Nick Fuentes appeared on her show. But why they always got to do my man Nick like that, man? Why they always got to do that? Why they got to throw that in there? Why does it have to be suspected closeted homosexual Nick Fuentes, man? Just say it's Nick Fuentes. Jesus. Appeared on her show, but in a text to Blaze's media CEO, she admits she's glad about Fuentes being on the show and did not mind women haters. For example, plaintiff complains in her complaint that the choice of guest compounded her growing discomfort with the show. She alleges notorious bigot Nick Fuentes appeared on YAH, yet in a text exchange on December 4th, 2021, Tyler Cardone, referencing the Fuentes guest appearance, plaintiff agreed with having Mr. Fuentes on the show. I'm going to have to stop saying that name because obviously YouTube doesn't like it too much. Although she now complains it was harassment, she further replied that usually when she thinks a proposed guest is a horrible idea, says no right out of the gate. She says no right out of the gate, and they do not get booked. But she let the Nick thing slide, and she was glad that she did to an extent. And she does not mind women haters. That's what she said in this text exchange right here. I've already talked to Elijah. Please give me a heads up if your instincts are ever telling you the guest is a bad fit. And then Sydney says, usually when I think it's a horrible idea, I say no right out of the gate, and Brandon typically doesn't book them. I let the Nick thing slide, and I'm glad we did to an extent. My audience was deeply upset and asked us to never have him on again. And frankly, it sounds like your audience is pretty soft, if I'm being honest with you. And frankly, I'm happy to oblige. I actually don't mind the women haters, but his audience is what makes the whole experience so horrible. They're a little swarm of demons. And this person replies and says 100%. I believe that was Tyler Cardone. Yeah, it says it right there. Like I said, shoot down bad ideas with good ideas. Half the issue is that we try to hide undesirable views rather than pulling them into the light and seeing them for what they are. Regarding the notorious Jack Murphy incident, here's the big one. Blaze Media displays proof of Watson personally adding Murphy's name and contact information to a list of guests to book for the program. Furthermore, the Blaze highlights Watson made an entire merchandise line based off Murphy and his response to her after she called him out for being a literal cuckold. So this was something that me and a lot of others have said as well. She acted like she was so traumatized by this Jack Murphy situation, by Jack Murphy saying, F you, heartfelt. If you haven't seen that, I believe it's linked in this article. So go check out this article. It's right here. Here is the Jack Murphy incident video right there. Hilarious video. Absolutely hilarious and legendary. I don't know how you haven't seen it. If you haven't, you must have been living under a rock. But yeah, this is something that we pointed out last time when the original lawsuit came out. She acted like she was so traumatized by the Jack Murphy incident. And yet she made an entire merch line out of it. She made so much money from that. I know that a ton of people bought this merch line. A ton of people bought these mugs. A ton of people bought these sweaters, the t-shirts. I know that a ton of people have bought that. So she made a ton of money off that, and she acted like she was extremely traumatized and yet profited off of it, which respect to her. Like I wouldn't have been mad at her for monetizing that incident. Of course you should monetize that incident. But to then file a lawsuit afterwards and saying that it was Blaze's fault, that it was Elijah Schaffer's fault, for bringing on Jack Murphy, the misogynist guest that hates women or whatever she said. Like, dude, that's just, it's insane. And here is the list of people who she wanted to be booked for the show. Eliza Blue is the first name on there. And we see other names. Jack Murphy is on there as well. So she wanted Jack Murphy on the show, which also brings up another issue. She acted like she had no idea what was going on with Jack Murphy and why Jack Murphy was angry at the questions that Sydney Watson was asking him. And a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe she just didn't do enough research. Maybe she wasn't aware enough about what's going on with Jack Murphy. She didn't do it on purpose. She literally was the one who recommended Jack Murphy as a guest. If you're recommending someone as a guest, you should probably do a little bit of research on them before recommending them to come on the show that you're a host on. Would probably be a good idea. But you probably already know my stance on this situation. I think that it was just Sydney Watson being on her way out from the Blaze, being on her way out from doing You Are Here. Honestly, I think that she's trying to form a little bit of an exit strategy for social media in general. She seems like she's not built for it. We have the quartering going on his channel saying he has to read the super chats on their joint show. I forgot what it's called, on the live stream that they do together, because she is so traumatized from what she went through on the Blaze and reading super chats that were mean. So now the quartering has to protect her from the big bad super chats, when in reality they could just turn them off. If she was really that scared of the super chats and traumatized by the super chats, just turn them off. But they'll never do that. They would never give up money. She's acting like she's traumatized by these super chats and everything. Dude, if you're really traumatized by super chats, you should probably just leave social media. And I think she was probably trying to form a little bit of an exit strategy here and just get some money on her way out. The Blaze also cites a situation when Watson told them she didn't want to co-host her existing show anymore. In response, the Blaze offered Watson an opportunity to keep working as an independent contractor to develop her own show or co-host a different broadcast. The Blaze states Watson agreed and took time off while she continued to collect pay from the Blaze. The Blaze then claims they didn't hear about the alleged sexual harassment associated with her show until August of 2022, 2 months after the Blaze claims Watson indicated she still wanted to work with them. So 2 months after she indicated that there was sexual harassment, she told them, 2 months after the sexual harassment complaint was filed, she told them that she still wanted to work there. So it must have not been that bad of sexual harassment. Additional text messages seem to contradict Watson's claims and indicate that she was pretty happy with the situation at the Blaze. Here's Elijah Schaffer saying, just touching base on the show tonight and filling you in. Also via Corey, do you have time right after he leaves tonight, even 10 or 15 minutes? I'd love to get more time with him if possible. Elijah says he has time, just leaves tonight at 8 p.m. He's coming to help fine-tune my studio a little late before we shoot, so we will be there at 2 p.m. Sydney says, sounds good, fam. Getting great feedback, and then like a little love face emoji. Elijah Schaffer says, me too, actually, about the whole show. And so it seems like Sydney Watson isn't having that bad of a time if she's saying she's getting great feedback and has a little love face emoji. Here is another conversation with Sydney Watson. Any possibility to push this to tomorrow? Sorry, Tyler, we're all over the shop today. Should be fine. 4:30. Yes. And then Tyler asks Sydney, "Are you doing okay?" "I'm actually doing great," Sydney says with 2 exclamation points. "Love to hear it. Totally chockers with work." I don't even know what the hell chockers is. "Though I really need help to hire, really need to hire someone to help, but good problem to have." I thought last night's episode was pretty decent too, by the way, despite Elijah being stuck in SC, I think that says, maybe South Carolina. I'm not sure. But here's another one with Sydney Watson. By the way, this doesn't seem like she's doing too bad. Doesn't seem like she's too traumatized by the super chats or even the sexual harassment that had been going on the show and at the Blaze. "Hey, not trying to bother you or pressure, I promise. We just need to all connect to figure out the contract adjustments or next steps on the pod. We are still interested." Sydney replies and says, "I'm not ignoring you, I promise. Just all over the place. Still want to see what y'all had in mind before any other meetings go down." So I guess this is what they mean by it was a couple months after, and she's still indicating that she still wants to work there. She's getting great feedback. She's doing great. All things that Sydney Watson herself is saying. This isn't conjecture. This isn't, he said, she said. It is direct text messages and emails from and to Sydney Watson that are verifiable. If these are faked, if these never happened, then Sydney Watson can provide the evidence for that pretty easily. She can say that these text messages never happened. It's not that hard to do. So if these were faked, then, that's one thing. But if these are real, which I think it's most likely real, it really looks bad for Sydney Watson and her case against the Blaze. These text messages and responses from Watson don't really add up to a hostile and toxic work environment. The messages seem to indicate that the Blaze media management consistently checked in on Watson to make sure she was doing okay and offer solutions. Maybe Watson assumed the Blaze wouldn't have receipts. Maybe. I'm not sure what her goal is here. Maybe she assumed that they wouldn't have receipts. Maybe she assumed that the receipts wouldn't be enough. I'm not sure. But this isn't looking good for Sydney Watson's pocketbook. This isn't looking good for the case, and it's definitely not looking good for her public perception. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this whole Sydney Watson versus the Blaze situation. Does this change the way that you look at Sydney Watson? Do you think that Sydney Watson will end up winning this lawsuit? What do you think will happen with the future when it comes to Sydney Watson and also the Blaze? Let me know what you guys think in the comments.